think of somebody today or tomorrow that you can encourage, or you can say something nice for, or even do something nice for without them even knowing it.
Absolutely.
That makes you feel good too.
Welcome to the Meier Clinics podcast, and you just heard a quote from one of your hosts, Dr. Lisa Day. Join our licensed clinical professionals from various backgrounds as they discuss fascinating mental health topics with a wide range of guests. Meier Clinics is a Christian counseling organization with multiple clinics nationwide, dedicated to treating the whole person, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Welcome to our listening family. We thank you for joining us. Hi, everyone. We are here to do a Dr. Paul Meier show for the Meier Clinics podcast and Mental Health News Radio. Paul is here. Hello, Paul.
Hi. And I would have never picked this topic, so I want everybody to know I would never, ever do a speech or a podcast on humility. It's just too prideful to do that. But I'm glad you thought of it.
Yeah, and
Somebody needs to talk about it.
Yeah, listen, listeners, it was not because, I feel like I'm the epitome of grace and no, it isn't that at all. It's more just what I've learned and what we think about in terms of this last year with COVID, like how much this has affected everyone. But Paul, you have some news. I don't know if you want to share.
Yeah. I just recovered from COVID a couple weeks ago. And I'm 75 years old, and I have diabetes, and I have severe sleep apnea, and I'm overweight. And so I was pretty worried about possibly getting it. And but I've been taking hydroxychloroquine for 9 months now as a precaution. And the only way I found out that I had COVID was I ran out of aftershave lotion, which we don't call it that anymore. We call it cologne. And so I went to Needless Markup, Neiman Marcus, to buy a bottle of Pasha de Cartier. That's my favorite flavor. And I was going to try a few other, smell and sniff a few other ones and see if I liked another one better. And I couldn't smell it. And so I didn't want to make a big deal out of it with the guy there. But that made me think, maybe I'm positive,
Right.
And so I went and got a test, and sure enough, I was COVID positive. And that's really the only symptom I had was less smell. And I'd never had a fever because I'm a doctor, we check our temperatures every single day. And my wife and I even check ours at home on the weekends. So it's one of those forehead thermometers. And in hindsight, my nurse said she noticed I was a little bit more tired the previous 2 weeks, that I wore out a little sooner, but I didn't even notice it. So my doctor says taking the hydroxychloroquine and zinc sulfate and vitamin D3, because most people that die of COVID are low in vitamin D because they're indoors and you get it from sunshine, unless you take D3 capsules. So by taking those three things for 9 months, she said that she thinks that totally prevented me from having symptoms. So it's like having the vaccine. The vaccine doesn't keep you from getting COVID, but it makes it so that if you get it, you'll have minimal symptoms.
Yeah.
I really think hydroxychloroquine does the same thing, except it wasn't politically correct, so.
Well, I've heard that it will become, you still get it, but it's like a cold.
Yeah.
And then you get over it.
And I didn't have any cough. I didn't have any other symptoms. It actually, I've got 5 degrees, one's in MD, but one's in human physiology too. And it actually, if you've seen a picture of the COVID virus, it's got those cute little arms, that kill people.
Right.
It's got those little arms that come out, but it prevents, hydroxychloroquine prevents the arms from attaching to ACE2 receptors in the lungs. So that's how it limits it. But once somebody's got it really bad and they got pneumonia and stuff, it wouldn't do any good, And just as a precaution, when I found out I was positive, I got a Z-Pack, even though I had no symptoms of, cough or anything, and took it just to make sure I didn't get pneumonia or something.
Right.
So anyway, I'm glad I'm doing fine, and I did my little stint of quarantine and worked out of my home, and now I've been back to work for a week now and feel great.
Good, because when I got the text from you, I went, and then we've been texting back and
very
forth
fortunate.
since. Yeah, so I knew.
Being 75. Yeah, being 75 and diabetic and sleep apnea, I consider myself very fortunate, and I know I've got friends that are in bad shape right now with COVID, and some who have died, and so I'm not making light of it. I feel really bad for those who have suffered.
Absolutely. I thought it was I thought it was an appropriate topic. When I thought of grace and humility, I actually thought of you, Paul, which, you can either fill up your prideful ego, as you like to tease about yourself, or have it just rest because it's the truth. You are one of the most humble and graceful people that I know.
Well, you know what? I mean, I don't see myself that way, but I was really pleasantly surprised. My sister, Nancy Brown, runs our clinics from Wheaton, Illinois, from Chicago area. And once a year, we fill out an anonymous opinion of everybody. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, but she said, Paul, I thought you'd enjoy this. I sent you all the anonymous opinions of the people that work at your office. And they were, they were so encouraging, because they're people, a lot of them that have been working here 20, 25 years. And they said that I was humble. And I thought, well, I showed my wife and said, see, there's proof, but they said I was, that I was loving and humble and pleasant to work with. And I considered everybody important, and I called them all by name. And so that did make me feel pretty good.
Good. I like to get those things too. Yeah. I mean, when I think about you have your stuff like we all do, but you're so quick to say, well, that could be this, or that could be that, or maybe I wasn't, maybe I was talking too much, or you're the first one. And it reminds me of my dad who's passed also. He had the loudest laugh of anyone. The college that he worked at, you could hear him from his office, down the hallways. He was famous for that. And most of the time when he was laughing at himself.
That's something I appreciate about you, is that even in our last program, you were able to cry. And I thought that was really cool, right? Here we are being recorded, and 100 people in 171 nations hear our broadcast. But I think both of us over the years have, when we've discovered a failure, we've willingly talked about it. And I looked up some really cool Winston Churchill quotes for this program. And one of them is right along that line. He said, success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So it's to recognize, we all fail. The Bible says we all fail in many ways. So when we do fail, we pick ourselves back up, and we keep going. And in fact, in Proverbs, King Solomon said 3,000 years ago that somebody who fails 7 times in a row, but they keep trying, is a righteous man, a righteous person. And the Apostle Paul said, sometimes I don't do the things I should. Sometimes I do things that I shouldn't, but there's no condemnation. What can I learn from it? And so, that's what I call humility. And I thought that was a pretty good quote.
Yeah, I love that. And I think grace and humility go together, because humility is all about grace. So
showing ourselves grace.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's the
having
biggest
grace
piece.
with others is one thing. Yeah.
When I sent, just listeners, so the shows that you just listened to, heavily edited, because I broke into tears that had nothing to do with the show. It was something that happened right before, and I just couldn't, and it's Paul, and I feel so comfortable, and all those things. So I just could not, I literally could not, all my tricks that I've used, like I used to, like if I feel like I'm going to cry and I'm talking, I will start saying random things in my head, like wall, paint, paperclip, banana. And that
Oh, really?
always, oh yeah,
Really?
yeah. Yep. And that helps me. I mean, I can still talk while I'm doing that, but it gets me out of that part of my brain that's,
Yeah.
the crying part. And that wasn't even working. So,
Huh. Well, I
but,
thought it was neat.
but we just, and I'm so grateful that I got, that I could just release like that and get that out. And Paul, you were so kind as always. You were graceful, gracious. And you knew I would make sure that we edit it so it sounded appropriate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was really nice. And what had happened was something that I just failed at. I mean, there was no way I could make an excuse for what had occurred. It was just, I failed at something, and it's all fine
Well,
now.
welcome
But
to the human race.
I know it. It was so funny. And I was caught in the fail too. It wasn't just, oh, I
Yeah.
failed. It was somebody went, you're not prepared the way you should be, kind of a thing, which I think I had to. I'm glad that my go-to, of course, I felt all this shame and everything right in the moment. But then later, like a good friend, I went, girl, it's fine, really.
Yeah.
You're-
Kristin, over the last, how long have we been doing this? 4 years now?
yeah, I think 4 years.
Over the last years, one thing we've repeated, maybe every 6 months or something like that, that is worth repeating again, is that, and I encourage my clients to do this all the time, especially in the day program where they're coming in feeling suicidal and everything. But I want all of our listening family right now, write a note to yourself, put today's date on it, and dear self, dear, put your name there. I pledge from today on to be your best friend. And I'm going to make an effort not to say anything negative to you that I wouldn't tell my best friend under the same circumstances. Now, life is tough enough, dealing with the truth, but probably half the pain a lot of us go through is believing things that are lies, like that we should be perfect.
Right.
And so when you do get mad at yourself, like you did, maybe you did something, maybe what you did was wrong, so what? But I don't know. I mean, I don't remember what the details are now. But
you'd giggle.
But if whatever it is, what if your best friend had done that, and your best friend said, "I feel so bad about that." You might say, "Well, that's good that you feel bad about it, because that shows you have a good conscience." But you'd say, what would you say? You wouldn't say, "Oh, you horrible person," and you wouldn't. You'd tell your friend the truth. Hey, welcome to the human race. That's the first thing I thought of when you mentioned it, is, well, welcome to the human race. We all fail. And so that's what you would tell yourself. So that's giving yourself grace. If everybody would do that, then you're learning how to give yourself reasonable grace. Now, if your friend does something really atrocious and idiotic, and that's going to get them in a big mess of trouble, and then it's okay to say that was a really stupid thing to do in a loving way. If you say that, exactly. I mean, you would tell me that. You'd say, "Paul, that was really a stupid thing to do." You would tell me that, but I would know it was coming from love.
Yeah, like if you called me and said, I decided I was going to get back into chainsawing and doing my cutting down all my own trees, and I just hadn't picked up a chainsaw in 50 years, and I just went out in the woods and took down a tree, and now I'm in the hospital with a broken leg and scars. I'd be like, Paul, that was really failure. Okay. But I'd say, I will be praying for you every day, So yeah, there are those kinds of epic failures. And then there's ones that strike your wounds so hard. So for me, like not doing well at work, not preparing for someone else's time, because I do feel grateful when people come on the show and they, they're ready. And if I'm not ready for them, I feel like, oh, and I didn't read a book before we started the show. And I started to talk about how stuff that wasn't in the book because I hadn't read it. And the person I interviewed had to say, and it went to such a wound in me. It was really good.
Yeah.
And I say that for all, all the listeners too, like those things that get you so hard that you just cry. And there were other reasons I was crying too. So many other things going on in my life, but those ones that really get you, really pay attention to those, because then, there's some work to be done there to heal that.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that it's reasonable to feel like you have to read a whole book on everyone that you interview, but
Right.
to have looked through it and got the gist of what they say would have been a good
nothing.
idea.
I did nothing. It was
Yeah.
it was bad. I was at my lowest. I can't handle this year anymore. It's the year 2020 anymore. I'm just done. And then I canceled all my interviews for the rest of the year because I was like, I'm not going to do that to somebody else.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Dr. Paul Meier of the Meier Clinics. Our Christian counselors across the country have a goal of helping all those who come to us to become what God has called them to be. If you're in a situation where you're not at peace within yourself, or you just feel like there's joy that's missing in your life, we can come alongside to help you obtain peace and joy.
This message is sponsored by the Meier Clinic Foundation, a nonprofit Christian counseling ministry. The number is 1-888-7-CLINIC, 1-888-7-CLINIC.
I know once in a while we interview somebody, but I really enjoy it when it's just, I feel so much more comfortable when it's just me and you.
Me too. My editor has said, and I know, to be blunt, exactly. You say that with all graciousness and humility too. We love it better too.
Yeah, with all grace and humility. I love it when it's just me and you doing all the talking.
I do too. I always want to hear more what you say than the guest. So anyway, we've learned that one. And our editor, Joe, who does such a fantastic job, he's like, oh, good, a Dr. Paul show, so it's a joy to edit. And then listeners say the same thing. I love the shows where it's you and Paul. Do more of those. So, with grace and humility.
Yeah.
So how can we go ahead, Paul.
I've got some more. I've just got about 6 more quotes.
Yes, go.
So let me share those, and then maybe they'll help us kick off into other related topics. But another, short, sweet quote on grace. You make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give. And grace is giving. Grace is looking out for other people, looking for ways to give of yourself to other people. That's grace. And that's humility too, actually. And then another one that he says, nothing is more costly, nothing is more sterile than vengeance. So, only by pride comes contention, Solomon said. And if we get so bitter towards somebody that we go through life trying to get vengeance, that's not humility, and that's not grace. And it doesn't mean you necessarily forgive somebody that raped you or ripped you off or did horrible things. You don't just condone what they did, but you don't let them eat away at you the rest of your life. You turn them over to God and turn vengeance over to God. And so nothing's more costly or sterile than vengeance. And vengeance is a type of a prideful thing to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It keeps you from the good. And if you, I definitely have struggled with that. And sometimes it's it's something, maybe you need some cognitive behavioral therapy to work through, or anything to help you work through it. Because sometimes you can get fixated on someone who done you wrong, or it continues. Like, let's say it's a coworker and they don't stop their awful behavior, and but you, long after the behavior has finally stopped, you're so angry still, and you find yourself ruminating about, how you're going to get back at them or what have you for months later. And, they've gone on and they're happily smiling all the time, and you're angry about that too. It's not that you're bad, that you became bad, or anything. It's just like, it's that bitter pill takes away your joy. There's healing to be done there so that you can move on to the next thing.
Right. And then with pride, the opposite of grace and humility, of course, is pride. And I don't know, what's the opposite of grace? I don't know.
Buffoonery? I don't know. I'm going to look that up. Listeners, if you hear clicking, I'm Googling it right now.
But if we're prideful, then we think we're always right and the other person's always wrong. And another thing, Churchill says that one of the greatest lessons in life is to know that even fools are right sometimes.
Right.
So if we think somebody's a fool, which, we're being prideful there, we ought to realize that, well, even a fool might be right sometimes. And he said, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, but courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen to somebody. So that's humility and grace, is to sit down and listen to somebody else's opinion on something.
And that can be very difficult when you're angry. And sometimes they won't let you. Sometimes you don't have that kind of closure. That person won't let you, talk it out and try to come to they just won't. And so you have to kind of, do that for yourself. The opposite of grace is disfavor, deformity, unkindness, pride.
Pride.
In elegance.
That makes sense. Yeah, arrogance. One of my favorite Churchill quotes, and I wrote a book called Experiencing God Outside the Box, about all the influences that make us prejudiced toward God and what he's, there's 8 billion people on planet Earth, and we have 8 billion different views of what God's like. So it means we're all a little bit wrong, and so in that book, I put a Winston Churchill quote, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. We need the courage to continue and give ourselves grace when we fail, and that's what counts. And what's really neat is a member of the Parliament, British Parliament, read that book in England, and of course loved it that I quoted Churchill, and sent me an email with a picture of that quote on it, saying thank you for sharing that. So that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. I think I know how powerful this microphone is for me because of how much healing it's helped me do in my life. And something that I was saying, it's because I haven't been happy where I moved to ride out the pandemic, and a lot of anger and all kinds of things. And I finally said, okay, I'm going to be so happy and ecstatic about where we go next that I'm not even going to care to say anything negative or write a negative review or anything about the place that I'm at. And I think that's lovely. That's helped a lot. But today, as you were talking, Paul, and you're reading one of those quotes, I thought, oh, I'm going to add to that. And I'm going to be so happy here where I'm at right now.
Yeah. I'm getting that way. Just like last night, I had a little bit of trouble sleeping and worrying about the country and all that, things that are going on. And what I do at night when I'm feeling troubled is I imagine that Jesus' hand is huge, 20 feet long, and I crawl into it and lay down in his hand. And in I think it's John 10, he says that he holds us in his hand, and the Father's hand is wrapped around that. And so the Father and Jesus both have us in their hands. And so I imagine myself laying in his hand and just saying, okay, you do what you're going to do, and I'll go through life and live with whatever the results are.
That's lovely.
I've only got three more Churchill quotes, and
go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. One is a fanatic is somebody who can't change his mind and won't change the subject. So that's somebody that's not graceful or humble. They're prideful. And then another one is, however beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. And that's humility again. So somebody may be so proud of their strategy that they don't stop and look at the results. That happened to one of the football teams. I love football, and I've been watching the playoffs and all that. And there's a team that hired a defensive coach, and the defensive coach changed everything, and he made everybody learn his system, and it kept failing and failing and failing. And so rather than modifying it and making it a little easier, he kept insisting that they do that, and they ended up missing the playoffs just barely because of, and he ended up getting fired, and he should have. And then my final Churchill quote. He said, "I'm ready to meet my maker. Whether my maker is prepared for the ordeal of meeting me is another matter." So it's just sort of a joke, that he's hoping God will have, he's ready to meet his maker, but he hopes God has enough grace to meet me. And and he does. God does. He's total grace. And so, okay, those are my quotes.
I love them. And I love that you were like, really? You want me to do a show on grace and humility? I thought that was hilarious. That's when you
emailed me
us.
the topic, I said, "Are you kidding?"
And I'm like, trust me on the journey of this one, because as you know, listeners, we don't really prepare. Well, Paul can prepare ahead of time. You'll look up a lot of things and put wonderful things out. But I just am in the moment about it. And so unless Paul sends me something and then I read it, but yeah, I thought, we've done this show with grace and humility. There's an example right there. I don't think there was even a smidge of ego at all throughout this. So just the show and the connection with someone that you is a good friend and you feel so comfortable and warm in their presence. That's so important, especially right now. So thank you.
Yeah, we've always, thank you too. We've always felt comfortable. Since we got to know each other, it took a little while. Yeah. Not too long, but it took a little while to get to know each other. But once we got to know each other, you're one of those few people that I can think out loud with.
Yes,
there's some people where you got to watch what you say and all that.
Yep.
But I've got a few people, my wife and my nurse, who I've worked with for 20 years, and my prayer partner in Paris.
Yep.
And you.
Are
four of the people that I can. If I'm thinking, whatever I'm thinking, I can say it. If I feel like crying, I can cry. If I'm upset about something, I can say it. It's really nice to have. But, that's something that people have noticed during COVID, during the pandemic, is how lonely they've gotten.
Yes.
And you don't have to be with somebody in person to have close relationships. You need to not just have social. Not just Facebook and things like that, but you need to have some people that you talk to on the phone, or that you do FaceTime with, or that you can share with, because we all need somebody. We all need to love and be loved by people who know the real us.
And I'll tell you what, if you feel like, because I know what it's like to feel like this, because I have been in the depths of depression many times, even if you feel like there is no one, there is absolutely no one. That's not really true either, because there are so many hotlines you can call, so many places where someone does answer the phone and they really, know how to speak to someone that's in that place where you feel so alone. So I encourage everybody to remember that, that's always there too. But Paul, thank you for doing this topic with me. Thank you for having the faith in me to know that we would do such a great episode about it.
It was fun.
Absolutely.
It was fun. It turned out to be fun. I thought this is embarrassing, but it turned out to be fun.
Good. I'm glad. All right, listeners, we will catch you on our next show. Thank you so much to our listening family for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Tune in next time for another engaging discussion on relevant mental health topics. If you have any questions about Meier Clinics, please visit our website at meierclinics.com. That's MEIER clinics.com, or call us at 888-7-CLINIC. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. And please note that we are a member of and produced by Mental Health News Radio Network, MHNRnetwork.com.